Okay, welcome back. So we're again in month. We're doing our Northern Flora block number 14, raspberry now. So I've gone ahead, I've got my kit here, and I've taken everything out, cut my 10.5-inch square, got my cathedral window appliques cut, and I've got all my raspberry appliques labeled. So I'm gonna go ahead and just jump right in, and and I've also got my photocopy ready to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and move my paper off to the side for reference, get my applique page there centered so you guys can see, and lay my 10.5-inch square on top. Make sure I'm in my points there. Okay, turn my light table on. So we're just going to go ahead and jump in. Oh, I will make one little comment. Sometimes some of these blocks come and they're folded. So if that bothers you, I just usually kind of press it out with my hands. If it's something that really, really bothers you, you can take your iron, press it out by hand first, and then just take your iron and just go down, across, and up. And it'll flatten it out pretty well. And once you take and remove the paper is what really holds that crease. So once you remove the paper, the fabric really gets floppy and loosens up, no problem. But if it's something that bothers you, you can always do that ahead of time. So, okay, so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna jump in. Oh, I did not go through and read my thing before, just to make sure I know what I'm doing. I usually double check so I know where everything is before we get started. I didn't do that because I was just like, man, I finished that daisy so fast. Let's go on to raspberry. I should have taken a second. But we're good. Okay, so we're just gonna start. We're gonna do stem 1. That's this kind of a brownish reddish kind of color here. Pop it out. Okay, get that off to the side. Trying to peel my paper off. There we go. And I tore my paper when I was peeling that, so I got an extra little bit of paper there. Okay. So with these sort of pieces, I like to start in the center. So I'm going to start at this little kind of fork here, put in place, and let the bottom just drop down. Let this top part kind of move off here to this leaf. And then this one just sort of guide it over where it should go under those leaves. Okay. And then the next part is all the cathedral window pieces. So we're doing them all at once. And like I showed in the last one, I kind of like to put these on where the cathedral window is sort of facing me. Okay, so I can straighten back up when I'm done. And I like to, when I lay them down also, I don't like any of the fabric that has the glue to hang over the edge. So if you're laying them down, I would prefer if yours aren't like perfectly straight, because you know they're hand cut, that straight line. I usually make it to where I can maybe, if it's not totally straight, I can see the blue peeking instead of having it hang over, only because I want to protect my ironing board when I go to steam. And if it's hanging over, you know, you have just glue that's exposed, and all of that edge is, you know, within a seam allowance. You're not going to see any of it anyhow. So I would prefer it was in a little more than hanging past the background square. So just a little tip there to protect your ironing board and your iron from getting glue on them. And now I'm just going to straighten back up because I moved. Okay, so now berries 1 and 2, and it says berries should be arranged in alphabetical order. So example 1A. So we know if we see a 1A, what does that mean? That means that there's going to be a 1B. So as I mentioned before, I did not take a peek. This is 1 and 2. I just got excited and was like, yeah, we're just going to get these done. Get these videos done today. And usually with things like red, if any little bits are hanging out at all, I do like to trim those off because you do kind of notice those on a white background. Oh, hang on. Where's 1B? Here it is. And one also, oh, that's it. It's just 1A and 1B. 2 has a part C, which actually, oh Oh no. So, okay. Here's something that can happen sometimes. So my little piece here, let me figure out which way it went. My fusible stayed on my paper, which might mean that that little area just didn't get very much heat before it went in the laser. So I'm going to put it back on. I'm going to grab my iron. Hang on for a second. I'm going to grab my ironing mat, and I'm actually going to take this whole little section. So if you ever have that happen where the glue doesn't stick to your fabric, all you have to do is put a little heat on it. My iron shut off, so my iron's not very hot. So normally I would not put this much heat on it. There we go. That's warmer. It wakes up when I move it. Put a little heat on it. I just went ahead and put it on the whole thing because if it did that on that one piece, it might be needing a little more heat everywhere else. So I went ahead and just put it on the whole thing. And now I'm just going to give it a moment to cool off while I get everything back arranged here. So if you ever have that happen on any of the appliques, you know, we iron them all before they go in the laser machine to get that glue warmed up and stuck to the fabric. But occasionally there might be a place of getting missed, or for whatever reason it doesn't get enough heat, and then the glue wants to stay on your paper instead of coming off on your fabric. So when and if that ever happens, just apply a little heat. So mine, now the paper, the glue's now stuck on here, paper peeled right off. So that's just a little tip. So let's see, we're going to put this one on, and then we're going to move on to 2. And 2B. Boy, this little light green is wanting to be my problem child today. I've got little threads that are wanting to hold too. Okay, and that one, the glue stayed right on there. So if there was an issue where it was going to want to peel up, it's fused back on really well. Okay, and then 2 actually has a part C, which attaches to both 1 and 2. It's a little stem. It's a little baby stem that connects to the big stem. So, and I always kind of put it where the fork is, and this is going to go up, and it's going to actually get covered by a leaf here soon. So it just sort of goes under that tip of that leaf. Okay, and then we want to do stem 2. Now, where's stem 2? Now, this is why I usually take a look ahead of time so I know what I'm doing. And then I was terrible this time and I didn't do that. Okay, hold on. I got to flip over. What is stem 2? Stem 2, stem 1, stem. Oh, stem 2 is part of 2. I labeled it as 2C. Okay. So there's one. I also find little things like that sometimes too. Okay, so stem 2 is actually part of 2C, 2A, 2B, 2C, stem 2. Apologize. Let's move on to the leaves. Step C is leaves A through C. Now, again, if we have an A1, we also will then have an A2. So A1 is right here. A2 is going to be in here. And when you're doing these veins, remember with veins, they are very skinny. They are very delicate. Just be real careful when you're pulling them out. If a thread sticks, snip it rather than pull it. Okay. Because you run a risk with those skinny, skinny pieces of having them tear on you. And so I'm just going to kind of, I can't see through this, but I'm just going to make my point here match where that stem is and that this point touches. And then I'm going to let everything else just sort of fall where it wants and not worry about if that is in the exact same place. Like I imagine this is probably more over here. So if I wanted, I could kind of lift it with my fingernail and move it. But I think it's not, it's very minor change that it's not necessarily necessary. So B, and if you'll notice B, it's just a B. So that means that there's no other part to it. It's just one part. And then did I say, oh, C also. Okay, so we're going to do C1, which is that one that's going to hide that stem 2, or also known as 2C. And then we're going to find C2, which is right here. And again, be kind of gentle when you're pulling these ones out because they have a tendency to tear. And if one of them does tear, as I mentioned before, we've been doing ones that have little stems. If you have something that tears, if it's coming to a point and they're so fine that sometimes they kind of tear apart and it's not really worth saving, I just like trim it down to another point and just, your vein will be a little shorter than the others. If it's something where it tears in half, like way up in the middle, you can take those 2 separate pieces, and if they're unraveled a little bit, you could trim off the unraveled bit and then just sort of put them down and butt them right up to each other. And when you go to fuse, the glue will heal that and you won't even see that it's there. Okay, so now we're moving on to buds A and B. These are these little guys in that kind of medium green. This one is A. Here's B. And then berry 3. Okay, that's got to be this berry. Yes, it is. So we have a 3. Oh, that says 3B. Ooh, pay attention. Okay, so we're looking for 3. That says 3C. So my guess is 3A. Yep, it's one of these little, it's this little, like, little baby stems. Okay, so A, B, and C. And if these little tiny pieces drive you nuts, you can try using some tweezers if you want. I still have not tried it. I probably should just try it just to be like, oh yeah, and it works great. But I haven't. Let me know if it works good for you. And then so buds A, B, berry 3, and then leaf D. Okay, so that's this big leaf here at the end of that little section. And we have a D1, so we're going to have a D2. In here. And watch those little veins. I kind of hold on to the vein as I pull from the side, and I have a little spot that's sticking here, so I'm not going to pull because I know I can very easily tear that when they're this tiny. Oh, I tore one. Oh, I can see it. Okay, so I tore like a whole big old end off of that one. So we'll do the little fix it thing on that. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and it tore off pretty clean. I have a thread, but it's pretty clean on this end. So I'm just gonna stick that in there. Stick that there. I'm gonna let it go on there. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take, because my vein isn't damaged too much, it was because it was sticking. I have a thread that's sticking in there. So I'm going to snip that thread and get it released. And then I'm going to take that little piece and just check it out. And it's actually very clean cut. So I'm going to take it. I'm just going to butt it right up against the point where it tore. And you can't even tell. And so if that happens to you, just do that. If it happens and it tears and it gets really wonky looking, you can always, like I said, just trim it to a point and you won't even notice. Okay, next, final step. Step E, berries 4 through 6. Let's do that first. 4A. So where's 4B? That says 4C, so this must be a 4B. Okay, one of these little bitty stems. And then a 4C. And these are all coming off really well now. So like if you end up having the same issue where one of them wants it in this light green, you can try it with the first one. If you want, just put a little heat on it beforehand, just in case. But usually it's like once in a while somewhere, one of them just doesn't get the heat in that specific area. You know, we kind of just go over with the iron. It might be like, oh, this little spot just didn't quite get heat on it. But we try to cover pretty well. Usually when I do the ironing, I go up and down and then I go side to side to try to make sure I cover everything. But once in a while it gets us. So 5A is that little stem. 5B is actually this little green part. And the berry itself, the fruit part, is actually the C on this one. These raspberries, I took pictures of raspberries growing at my mom's house when I did this design. And so these are the big, beautiful, juicy raspberries that grow at my mom's house. I love them. And every year I go and pick them, whether I want to or not. She tells me, the raspberries are ready. The raspberries need picked. The raspberries need picked. When are you coming over to pick the raspberries? And I'll be like, okay, geez, I'll come over. And so that's it for the raspberries there. But they're so big. They're bigger than, I mean, they're bigger than the wild raspberries that you find for sure. And they're really, really good. So I pick a whole bunch of them. And if I don't have time to make jam, I just throw them in the bag and throw them in the freezer. And then sometimes I'll end up making jam in like December or something with them. But we always make jam with them. And now that I've been making jam, I also get strawberries from O'Brien Farms in Nikiski. And now that I do that, my family pretty much doesn't ever want me to buy jellies or jams from the store. It's like, if we're running out, do we have raspberries in the freezer to make more? And then every summer, my husband will remind me to make sure, so I'm going to move on to Bud C here, to make sure to get out to O'Brien Farms before the strawberries are all gone because he loves the strawberry jam. And I put it in cheesecakes. You can melt it, put it on ice cream. We put it on a bunch of stuff. It's so good. So much better than what you can get in the store too. Okay. And then leaves E through G. I always find I do that sort of thing to myself. I make something that's like a homemade type thing like that. And then my family gets spoiled. E is this leaf up here that you can't see so well. It goes through the cathedral window. So I just kind of start here and just kind of let it fall over. It'll go where it needs to go. And E2, and E doesn't have any veins on it. But anyways, we'll have something and I'll be like, oh my goodness, you know, have you ever had like homemade jam? And my husband, no, not in a long time, whatever. Well, I'll make some. And then it's like, okay, now that's all he ever wants. So, you know, don't ever think about just buying jam. We got to make it now. And I do that sort of thing all the time. Once my family has tasted something like that, like fresh, then it's kind of like, okay, so now we always need that. But it's okay. It's so much better for you. It tastes so much better. Sometimes when I go visit my friend in Oregon, if I'm there in the early summer or springtime when they have strawberries, I've bought strawberries down there and then bag and get them frozen and then bring them home and make jam out of that too, which that's amazing. And leaf G is the only one that has 3 parts. I'm almost finished here. As fast as the daisy for sure, but we're at just under the 20-minute mark here, so that's not too bad, huh? Beach pea is going to be a little long, only because, and that's it, that's the last piece, because beach pea has a lot of leaves. That's the number one reason. But I'll tell you what, it's my favorite. It's my favorite of all of them, the beach pea. Okay, all done. So turn off my light box. Here we go. We're all finished with the raspberry. So what do we do next? You all should know. We're going to Lightly press everything with your iron first to make sure that it warm up that glue and it all sticks in place. And then do your steaming or your spritzing and dry heat, but make sure you're including some liquid. So whether through steam or through a spray bottle, this is my spray bottle. This is spray bottle. And then do your fusing with your steam and or spray bottle, and then do it around the back as well. And then you're finished. Okay, so I will start on Beach Pea in just a few moments, and I'll see you again soon.